The cocktail party was over. My wife, who was supposed to pick me up, was nowhere to be seen. A light rain began to fall. She wasn't answering her phone. The last message on my WhatsApp was the one I'd sent. Wrapping up in 10, where are you? Guests filed out of the venue one by one. Hey, Ethan, Sophia not here yet? I can give you a lift, a friendly colleague offered. I waved him off, forcing a smile. No thanks, she's probably stuck in traffic. You guys go ahead. I was smiling, but a slow burn of anger was building in my gut. Last night, Sophia had been swamped and asked me to attend this event in her place. She had work to finish, she said, but she promised she'd be there to pick me up when it was over. I'd agreed without a second thought. After another 30 minutes of waiting, my patience was shot. I was about to call an Uber when a message from Sophia finally came through. Still slammed at the office. Just grab an Uber. I didn't reply. I should have known. The night air sobered me up a little. On the way home, a message from Leo popped up. Dumbass, guess where I am right now? I swear to God I'll punch you. Spit it out, I sent back as a voice note. A moment later, a short video clip arrived. The background was a lavish, high-end restaurant. Under the warm, intimate lighting, a woman sat at a distant table. I recognized her instantly. It was my wife, Sophia. She wore a relaxed smile I hadn't seen in a long time. Across from her sat a man, his face unclear. Leo's smarmy voice narrated from behind the camera. Didn't expect Julian Vance to be back in the country. Heard his flight just landed tonight. You might want to keep an eye out, man. So, her old flame was back. No wonder she was too busy for a networking event. Julian Vance, Sophia's high school sweetheart. They'd broken up in their junior year of college, but he had owned her entire youth. The only reason Leo and I knew was because we were in the class next door back then. I had Leo send me a couple of high-resolution photos. Then I forwarded them to Sophia. No explanation. No follow-up text. On her end, not even an apology, not even the 3 pulsing dots that meant she was typing. Whatever. It didn't matter. Our marriage had only ever been a business arrangement anyway. I turned off my phone and leaned back against the seat, closing my eyes. 3 years ago, Sophia and I had both hit the 30-year-old mark. Under pressure and persuasion from both our families, we got a marriage license. The wedding was a magnificent affair, a perfect match between 2 powerful families, a union of titans. In everyone's eyes, we were a match made in heaven. After the wedding, she focused on her career and I ran my company. We lived under the same roof, but we were more like roommates, each giving the other plenty of personal space. You couldn't call it a loving marriage, but there wasn't any conflict either. Sophia always thought this arrangement was fine. I didn't. This didn't feel like a home. I got home and opened the door to darkness. Tugging off my tie, I poured myself a glass of ice water. The cold liquid cut through the churning in my stomach. After a shower, the sound of rain tapping against the window grew louder, eventually becoming a downpour that hammered against the glass. As I was drying my hair, my phone buzzed. It was a message from Sophia. The rain's too heavy. Probably won't make it back tonight. Just letting you know. Unbelievable. I'd already caught her in a lie, and she was still putting on this act. I shook my head and didn't bother replying. A well-matched pair, a match made in heaven. The words of our wedding officiant echoed in my ears. The Reed family needed the Hayes family's political connections, and the Hayes family valued the Reed family's resources in the business world. Sophia and I were just the most presentable assets in the transaction. I had thought we could cultivate feelings, that we could build a home. It had been 3 years. I tried to get closer, but she always maintained a perfectly measured distance, playing the role of roommate flawlessly. Whatever slim hope I'd held onto for her had evaporated the moment she lied to me. The sky was just beginning to lighten when a noise from the hallway woke me from a deep sleep. It sounded like Sophia was back. Seriously? It was barely past 5 in the morning. If you're going to spend the night out, at least have the decency to get a full night's sleep before coming home. She opened the bedroom door and walked in, stopping beside the bed. I could feel her eyes on me, but I was too tired to care and didn't move. She stood there for a moment, then suddenly reached out and tried to pull the comforter off me. I snapped my eyes open, swatted her hand away, and yanked the blanket back. It's not good for you to sleep with your head covered, Sophia said, her tone stiff. Psycho, I muttered, glancing at her before turning over to go back to sleep. She had dark circles under her eyes, and her hair was a mess. She was still wearing yesterday's clothes, which carried the damp chill of the outdoors. She seemed taken aback by my reaction. I was just trying to fix your blanket. With that, she left the room. I slept until the sun was high in the sky. In the living room, Sophia had already changed into loungewear and was eating breakfast, looking as if she had just woken up too. Aren't you going to explain last night? I asked, pulling out a chair to sit down. Her movements paused. She looked up at me. Julian just got back in the country. We haven't seen each other in years, so we just had a simple dinner. As for lying to you, I just didn't want to over-explain and make you overthink things. So you two spent the night at a hotel? Sophia put down her spoon, her brow furrowing slightly. Ethan, don't be crude. I came back as soon as the rain let up. I nodded, picking up a glass of water from the table and taking a sip. Right, got it. There was no argument, no interrogation. My calm reaction was so unexpected that it seemed to throw her off. She stared at me, searching my face for any trace of anger or hurt. She found nothing. I picked up a piece of toast and began to methodically spread jam on it, my attention seemingly devoted entirely to my breakfast. Is that all you have to say? Sophia finally asked, a note of uncertainty in her voice. I looked up at her and offered a nearly polite smile. Say about what? Enjoy your breakfast? Sophia was stunned. She opened her mouth, then closed it, saying nothing. She lowered her head and quietly finished her oatmeal. From that day on, something quietly shifted. I stopped deliberately timing my evenings to have dinner with her. When work got busy, I'd just eat at the company cafeteria. Sometimes I'd even hit the gym for a while afterward. By the time I got home, it was usually 8 or 9. Sophia seemed to notice the change. At first, she probably thought I was sulking. She'd send a text if I wasn't home by 7, the way she always did. Coming home for dinner? My replies were always brief and delayed. Busy. You eat first. Or I just wait a few hours until I was already home and text back. Already ate. After a few times, she stopped asking. That weekend, not want to hang around the house, I called Leo. The moment I got out of my car, 2 young women in matching plaid skirts and crop tops swarmed me. They flashed sweet smiles and said in unison, "Hi, Ethan." I was completely baffled. I was sure I'd never seen them before. Do I know you? Instead of answering, they walked right up and hooked their arms through mine, one on each side. My arms immediately sank into soft cleavage. Oh, what are you doing? Don't be nervous, Ethan. One of them chirped. Leo sent us to meet you. What the hell? What was that idiot Leo pulling? 5 minutes later, I was sitting across from Leo. He had 2 similar-looking women flanking him. So, what do you think of the welcome committee? Don't worry, he said, taking a drag from his cigarette with a smug look. They're all over 18. Are you out of your mind? What is this whole production? I said, annoyed. I glanced around. Plenty of people were looking our way, pointing and whispering. Some looks were disdainful. Others held a kind of envy that all men understood. The restaurant Leo had chosen was trendy, but unfortunately, it had no private rooms. We were separated from other diners only by the low walls of our booth. Leo ignored my reprimand. He blew a smoke ring and grinned. Come on, dumbass. I saw you've been down lately, so I found a couple of girls to help you unwind. Life is short, man. You gotta live a little, you know. Besides, Leo continued, Sophia already crossed the line. What are you afraid of? You think she's the only one allowed to play with fire? His companions were dutifully pouring his tea and offering him fruit. Meanwhile, the girls next to me were subtly leaning against me. You're the dumb ass, I grumbled. It's the middle of the day, and you pull this flashy stunt. Couldn't you at least pick a place with a private room? I shot Leo a glare and gave up arguing with him. He'd been reckless since we were kids. I accepted the tea offered by the girl on my right with a quiet, thanks. That's more like it, Leo said, crossing his legs like a king on his throne. I told you, man. You should have stayed single with me, but you wouldn't listen. And look at you now. Me? I float through a sea of flowers, and not a single petal clings to me. Now that's freedom. Give me a break. Everyone knows you're a total mama's boy. If your mom found out about this, she'd break your legs, I said, laughing as I picked up a slider. She'll never know. I'm careful, Leo said, confidently wrapping an arm around the girl beside him. And my brother's 3rd kid was just born. My mom has 0 time for me now. She and my dad are obsessed with the grandkids. He trailed off as a server led 2 new guests down the aisle past our booth. I glanced up instinctively and froze. The man in the lead, dressed in a sharp suit and carrying himself with a gentle, refined air, was Julian Vance. The woman following him, wearing a smartly tailored beige trench coat and a cool expression, was none other than Sophia. The server showed them to a booth diagonally across from ours. Julian, ever the gentleman, pulled out a chair for Sophia. She gave a slight nod and sat down, her profile facing our direction. Leo saw them too. His mouth fell open, and the peanut he just picked up dropped back into the bowl. Holy shit, he mouthed silently, his eyes wide. What are the odds? My hand, holding my teacup, paused for a fraction of a second. I brought my gaze back to our table. What's there to look at? Just eat. The 2 girls beside me sensed the shift in the atmosphere and dialed it back, no longer leaning against me. Leo's smirk vanished, replaced by a look of nervous excitement as his eyes darted between our table and theirs, anticipating the drama. I focused on my food, acting as if nothing was wrong. I couldn't believe I'd come here to get away from home, only to run into them. Talk about odds. Leo leaned in, his voice barely a whisper. You wanted to go over there and say hi for you. Are you an idiot? Eat your food, I said without looking up. Just then, as if sensing something, Sophia turned and looked our way. Her gaze first swept over Leo and the girls with him, a flicker of disdain in her eyes. Then it landed on my face, and there we were, staring at each other across a few tables. The noisy chatter of the restaurant seemed to fade into silence. A flash of surprise crossed her face first, quickly followed by a scrutinizing look. Her eyes lingered on my face for a moment, then drifted to the two young women in their trendy outfits flanking me. Her brow furrowed almost imperceptibly. Her expression turned cold, as if coated with a thin layer of ice. I met her gaze without flinching, simply watching her calmly. A faint, unreadable smile even touched the corners of my mouth. Our silent standoff lasted only a few seconds. She was the first to look away, turning back to say something to Julian. He followed her previous line of sight and looked over. He was visibly startled to see me. Then, a slightly awkward, yet polite smile appeared on his face as he gave me a small nod of acknowledgement. I twitched my lips in response. Damn, he's got some nerve, smiling like that, Leo muttered under his breath, indignant. Eat. I pulled my eyes away, picked up my chopsticks, and grabbed a piece of short rib as if the interruption had never happened. But the mood at our table had irrevocably changed. Leo stopped his loud boasting. The girls beside me, sensing the tension, ate their food in small, quiet bites. From the table across the way, the faint murmur of Sophia and Julian's conversation drifted over. I couldn't make out the words, but I could see Julian's confident gestures as he spoke. Sophia nodded occasionally. The atmosphere between them looked perfectly harmonious. I ate quickly. My plate was empty in no time. You done? Leo asked. Yeah, let's go. I wiped my mouth with a napkin and stood up. As we passed their table, I didn't pause or even glance in their direction. I walked straight past. Leo, however, trailing behind me, deliberately slowed his pace. He let his eyes wander over Sophia and Julian, then let out a soft but audible scoff. Outside the restaurant, the afternoon sun was a bit too bright. Damn it, what a buzzkill, Leo cursed, lighting a cigarette. Can't even grab a bite to eat without running into that trash. Ethan, are you really just going to take this? I looked at him and suddenly smiled. Or what? I should go in there and flip their table. It's just a business arrangement, I said, clapping him on the shoulder, my tone light. At the end of the day, we're business partners. As long as she doesn't damage the reputations of our companies or our families, if she's happy, she's happy. You want me to handle your divorce? I'll make sure you get her family's company in the settlement. I did drop out of law school, after all. Let's not. I'm afraid you get us both thrown in jail. I cut him off. Thanks for today, but seriously, no more of these stunts in the future. And if you're going to pull something, at least pick a place with some privacy. I patted his shoulder again and walked toward my car. In the rearview mirror, I saw Leo standing there, scratching his head in frustration. When I got home, Sophia, surprisingly, was already there. She had just taken off her coat when we locked eyes. I changed my shoes, not planning to engage, and started walking toward the bedroom. Ethan, she called out. I stopped and turned to look at her. Yeah. Her eyes were on me, filled with judgment and a hint of displeasure. Aren't you going to explain yourself? Explain what? I leaned against the hallway wall, my voice flat. It was just a casual lunch with Leo today. Don't overthink it. The words sounded familiar. Sure enough, Sophia's face instantly darkened. I looked at her and found the situation almost funny. My meeting with Julian was a normal professional courtesy. Your meeting with Leo was not. Those girls looked like they were barely out of high school, Sophia said, her voice rising with clear anger. Oh, so it's okay for you to meet up with an old flame at a fancy restaurant and reminisce about the good old days, but I can't have a simple meal with a friend who happens to have a couple of servers pouring tea. I shot back with a slight laugh. Ethan, we need to talk, she said, her tone softening a bit. Talk about what? Julian and I, we really are just friends. He just got back and isn't familiar with the market here. I was just giving him some advice as a friend, she tried to explain. Uh-huh, I believe you, I nodded. So, my reaction once again caught her off guard. She had probably prepared for an argument, for accusations, maybe even for sarcasm, but she had not expected this complete indifference. So you don't need to retaliate by messing around with Leo and those girls, she finally got out. You're overthinking it. I don't have the time or energy for such childish games. I've just come to a realization. I said. Without waiting to see the complex expression on her face, I turned and went into the bedroom. I didn't sleep well that night. In a state of half-dreaming, I thought I heard the master bedroom door open and close a few times. Faint footsteps paced in the hallway. I knew it was Sophia. The next few days, we entered a full-blown Cold War. Or rather, a new phase of our relationship. Sophia went back to her parents' house. She didn't officially inform me. One day when I came home from work, she was walking out with a small suitcase and drove off right in front of me. I didn't call to ask why. Before bed, I received a concise text from her. Things are busy at work. Staying at my parents' for a few days to be closer to the office. I stared at the screen and finally replied with a single word. Okay. On her end, the screen showed typing. For a moment, but then nothing else came through. Fine by me. It saved us a lot of pointless drama. The house became even quieter. I started pouring more time into work, and even my interactions with Leo dwindled. Then one day, his call came at just the right time. The background was noisy. Where you at, man? Got something going on tonight, you in? At work. Have to work late, I said curtly. No way. I thought you hated working late. The girls I found tonight are legit, man. Art school students, totally classy. Seriously, I'm working. The project is critical. I cut him off. Next time, for sure. There was a pause on Leo's end, and then his tone became more serious. All right, man. You handle your business. Call me if you need anything. After hanging up, I leaned back in my chair. The intercom buzzed. It was my assistant. Mr. Hey, Mr. Julian Vance is here without an appointment. He says he needs to see you about something important. Should I? Julian Vance? What the hell did he want with me? I thought for a moment. Send him in. Julian still had that polished, refined look, dressed in a well-fitted custom suit, his smile perfectly calibrated. Mr. Hayes, sorry to drop in like this. He sat down across from me. Mr. Vance, what can I do for you? I asked directly, in no mood for pleasantries. He smiled, his posture relaxed. It's nothing major, really. I just saw Sophia, and since I was in the neighborhood, I thought I'd stop by and say hello to you. After all, we're all alumni. So, he was here to provoke me, calling her Sophia so casually. Oh, I raised an eyebrow. You just saw my wife? Sounds like you and my wife are pretty close. Julian leaned forward slightly, his hands clasped on his lap, a flawless smile on his face. You could say that. We're all friends here. The air in the office seemed to freeze for a few seconds. I leaned back in my chair, my fingertips tapping lightly on the mahogany desk. I said nothing. Julian's smile faltered a bit, but his eyes remained confident. I think there might be some kind of misunderstanding between us. Sophia is just a very loyal person. After all, we've known each other for so many years. I let out a small laugh, picking up the pen on my desk and toying with it, gesturing for him to continue. He sighed. Honestly, I also came here today to speak on Sophia's behalf. She's the kind of person who's too strong-willed, who doesn't know how to show weakness. But in a marriage, someone always has to be the first to bend. I nodded. As her ex, are you trying to give me marriage advice, Mr. Vance? Seeing my uninterested reaction, Julian stood up, his own interest waning. Don't get me wrong, Mr. Hayes. As a mutual friend, I just don't want to see you two have a falling out over something trivial. Don't trouble yourself. I pressed the intercom button. Show our guest out. The dismissal was blunt. The smile finally fell from Julian's face. I stood up and walked to the floor-to-ceiling window. A moment later, his figure appeared at the building's exit. He stood by the curb, made a phone call, and then hailed a cab and left. At 8 that evening, I drove home. The garage was empty. Sophia's parking space was still vacant. I loosened my tie, planning to take a shower and then fix myself something to eat. To my surprise, Sophia was home. She was sitting on the living room sofa, seemingly waiting for me. Ethan, we need to talk, she said, her expression serious. I sat down on the armchair across from her. About what? Did Julian go see you today? She asked. It wasn't a question. It was a confirmation. News travels fast. It seemed Julian had contacted her right after leaving my office. Yep, your old flame was very enthusiastic. He even brought fruit, I said, a slight smile on my face as if reminiscing about the afternoon. What did you two talk about? Sophia pressed, frowning. Nothing much. Your ex just got a little impatient. Asked me when I was planning to divorce you. Sophia's face went white. She shot up from the sofa. How could he say something like that? Ethan, there's a limit to your lies. Believe what you want. I crossed my legs. He also advised me, as an old friend, to be magnanimous and not stand in the way of you finding your second chance at love. Sophia's chest heaved, clearly enraged by my words. Ethan, her voice trembled with anger. Julian is not that kind of person. How could he possibly? How could he possibly what? I cut her off. He challenged me to my face. He said the one who isn't loved is the third wheel. He said the fact that you ditched me to run to him the night he got back was all the proof he needed. He said all he has to do is call, and you'll come running, rain or shine. I had no idea your 30-something ex-boyfriend still had such a hold on you. No wonder you've been so lukewarm to me for 3 years of marriage. Turns out you two have been carrying on this whole time. I always wondered if you two were so deeply in love. Why did you even break up? Did you think it would be more interesting to get divorced and remarried in your 30s? Or maybe your old flame finished playing the field and came back looking for you to take him back. Sophia was completely stunned by this barrage of vicious, fabricated accusations. Her face went from white to ashen, her lips trembling. She tried to speak several times, but my deliberately raised voice drowned her out. It wasn't until I finished with that last, cruel question that a dead silence fell over the living room, broken only by her ragged breathing, heavy with shock and anger. You're lying. She finally found her voice, which was trembling with disbelief. Ethan, have you lost your mind? How could Julian possibly say those things? You're slandering him. Slander? I sneered, holding up my hands. Think whatever you want. I've delivered the message. Whether you believe it is your problem. Maybe you should call your old friend right now and ask him if he's eager to be your next husband. Sophia stared at me, her eyes filled with a stranger's gaze and the fury of being humiliated. She seemed to be searching my face for any sign that I was lying. But my expression was cold, mocking. Sophia, snatch her purse from the sofa. This is insane. With that, she turned and strode toward the door. The sharp click of her heels on the hardwood floor echoed in the empty living room. Slam! The front door was thrown shut. I walked, expressionless, to the liquor cabinet and poured myself a whiskey. The ice clinked softly in the glass. Sophia didn't come back that night. We seemed to be locked in a strange standoff. When an older relative asked about her in the family group chat, I just said that Sophia had a major project at work and was staying at her parents' house to make it easier to work late. She, for her part, remained silent and didn't expose my lie. Leo called a few times to hang out, but I turned him down each time, blaming work. He must have heard something because he sat on the phone. Ethan, what's the point? You wanted to come over? We can get drunk. I'm fine, man. Just really busy lately, I said, my tone light. I'll hit you up when things calm down. After hanging up, I stared out the window at the gloomy sky. It was about to rain. A week later, I attended an important industry summit on behalf of my company. Normally, a husband and wife would attend such an event together, but I went alone. Of course, the organizers had seated Sophia and me at the same table. What a fucking joke. Sophia arrived with Julian. She was wearing a silver evening gown. He was in a sharp suit, standing beside her, smiling like he'd already won. The expressions of the others at our table immediately became laced with intrigue. When Sophia saw me, her face paled, and she instinctively looked for another seat. But Julian, ever the gentleman, pulled out her chair for her. Sophia, let's sit here, he said in a gentle voice. The view is better. I snorted and took my own seat, not bothering to look at them. Halfway through the dinner, the servers began bringing out the soup. When a bowl of chicken and mushroom soup was placed in front of Sophia, she suddenly covered her mouth and let out a small retch. It was quiet, but the table instantly fell silent. All eyes were on her. Julian immediately handed her a glass of water and gently patted her back. Are you okay? Have you been too tired lately? He asked with concern. His tone, his posture, he looked for all the world like a doting husband-to-be. A clueless executive at our table chuckled. Is this good news, Ms. Reed? Congratulations, Mr. Hayes. Congratulations, my ass. I put down my chopsticks and picked at my napkin to wipe my mouth. I looked at Sophia's ghostly pale face. My voice wasn't loud, but it was clear enough for the whole table to hear. Is it? We should probably figure out if it's food poisoning or a pregnancy before we offer congratulations. After all, I paused, my eyes sweeping over Julian's frozen face. What if it's just a stomach bug? My words hung in the air. The table was dead silent. The executive who had offered congratulations turned beet red, so embarrassed he looked like he wanted to crawl under the table. I stood up, adjusted my tie, and gave the table an apologetic smile. Excuse me, everyone. Please enjoy your meal. I'm feeling a little nauseous myself. I think I'll head out. Behind me, a suffocating silence was followed by a burst of hushed gossip. I walked out of the banquet hall without a backward glance. As soon as I got in my car, my phone started vibrating uncontrollably. Sophia's name flashed on the screen. I silenced it and started the engine. I hadn't driven far when I saw her at an intersection. She was standing in the cold night wind in her thin dress, her face paler than a ghost. When she saw my car, she ran directly into the road, blocking my path. I slammed on the brakes. She started banging on my window, all composure gone. "Ethan, get out of the car. We need to talk." I lowered the window, looking at her with cold eyes. Talk about what? In front of all those people, what was with all those snide remarks? I stared at her, my face a mask, making no move to open the door. Was I wrong? Was it not a stomach bug? You couldn't possibly be pregnant, could you? I mean, I had a vasectomy almost a year ago. Clatter. The phone in Sophia's hand slipped and fell onto the pavement with a sharp crack. She stared at me in utter disbelief, her lips trembling too much to form words. Is that true? When did you? Her voice shook, the last two words almost impossible to get out. The vasectomy? Oh, it's true, I said lightly. No, that's impossible. Absolutely impossible. You would never get a vasectomy. Her eyes were vacant as she muttered to herself. She snapped her head up. This isn't a funny joke. My smile vanished, my eyes turning cold. I'm not joking. So what are you planning to do about that bastard in your belly? BAS. Bastard? She repeated the word, her voice hoarse and laced with a sense of surreal disbelief. Ethan, do you have any idea what you're saying? I'm saying, I enunciated slowly, my tone calm and cruelly playful, that the baby in your belly is a bastard. You're lying. I'm not pregnant. Sophia finally found her voice, shouting through the shock. And how could I be? We're married, and you went and got a vasectomy behind my back without my consent. Looking at her, I suddenly felt a wave of weariness. This game of mutual destruction wasn't bringing me the satisfaction I'd expected. Pregnant or not, a trip to the doctor will clear that up, won't it? My voice was cold as I gripped the steering wheel again. Move. I'm leaving. Sophia didn't try to stop me this time. She just stood there, staring at my car with empty eyes. I raised the window, shutting out the world, shutting out her unnerving gaze. I hit the gas and drove away. My phone rang. It was Leo again. I put down the file I was reviewing and answered. Holy shit. Ethan, you're a legend, he yelled into the phone. Guess who I just saw at the OB/GYN clinic? Sophia. The whiskey glass in my hand paused midair. What was she doing there? How should I know? She looked white as a sheet, totally out of it. When she came out, she almost walked right into the door. Leo's voice was giddy with the thrill of a gossip monger. You think she could be pregnant? With yours. Not my problem. What if it is yours? Your mouth is toxic, but I've never doubted your swimmers. Get lost. I hung up, but I couldn't shake the growing sense of unease. An OB/GYN? The last time we'd slept together was over 2 months ago. Had she really cheated on me? The next few days were quiet. Sophia didn't come home, and she didn't call. Work was still demanding, but a persistent, nagging irritation lingered in the back of my mind. That afternoon, I got a call from my mother-in-law. Ethan, come over for dinner tonight. Your father-in-law caught a huge fish today, and he's dying to show off his cooking skills. Her voice was cheerful. I rubbed my temples. Mom, I don't think I can make it tonight. I have something on. What could be more important than dinner with family? It's been ages since you've come to visit, my own mother said, clearly on the same call. And Sophia's been staying here for a while now. Don't you think it's time to bring your wife home? The joint call from our mothers was impossible to refuse. I eventually gave in and promised to be there that evening. I pulled into the Reed's driveway and took a deep breath, schooling my expression before heading inside. The moment I walked in, I knew something was off. It wasn't just my in-laws in the living room. My own parents were there too. The four of them were sitting together, their faces not exactly grave, but far from the relaxed mood of a simple family dinner. Sophia was sitting on an armchair slightly apart from the group, her eyes downcast. She was holding a glass of water, her knuckles white. She didn't look at me. My stomach dropped. I knew what this was. This wasn't dinner. This was an intervention. I greeted everyone in turn, trying to keep my voice steady. Ethan's here. Come on in, sit down. We were just waiting for you, my mother-in-law said with a smile, but it didn't quite reach her eyes. My parents just gave me a complicated look. My mother-in-law had prepared a feast. Her husband's prized fish was steamed and placed in the center of the table, still steaming. At the table, my father-in-law boasted about his 200-pound catch. My mother-in-law tried to keep the conversation flowing, asking about everything from the weather to recent news, desperately trying to lighten the mood. Finally, after I had put down my bowl and accepted a cup of tea from her, my mother couldn't hold back any longer. She set her teacup down with a sharp clink that shattered the fragile piece. Ethan, my mother began, her voice tight with emotion. We asked you here tonight because we need to know. What exactly is going on between you and Sophia? Here we go. I didn't speak, just took a sip of my tea, waiting. My mother-in-law sighed and picked up where she left off. Ethan, Sophia told us everything. The, the vasectomy. Is it true? Her voice held a final shred of hope that I would deny it. I looked up at Sophia. She met my gaze. The anger and coldness were gone from her eyes, replaced by a profound exhaustion and a kind of heartbreak I couldn't decipher. Ethan, answer us, my father said sternly. How could you do something like this? Something so major, and you didn't discuss it with Sophia? You didn't tell any of us? Do you even care about this family anymore? Facing my parents' accusations, I looked at Sophia and spoke slowly, my voice devoid of emotion. You called this whole summit just to ask me that. You don't think this is a big deal? My mother's voice rose. You're in your 30s. Are you planning on never having children? What is Sophia supposed to do? How are we supposed to face anyone? The pressure was immense. The eyes of all four parents were fixed on me. Sophia's head was down, but the tension in her shoulders told me she was waiting for my answer too. Suddenly, I found the whole situation ridiculous and exhausting. I put down my teacup, leaned back in my chair, and let my gaze sweep over everyone at the table, finally landing on Sophia's pale profile. I lied to her, I said. My voice wasn't loud, but it carried clearly through the silent dining room. What? My mother stammered. Sophia's head snapped up, her eyes wide with disbelief. I gave a small, self-deprecating smile. I said the vasectomy was a lie. I made it up to piss her off. The lie had just been a bluff to corner Sophia. I never expected it to ripple out like this. The dining room was plunged into a dead silence for several seconds. What? What did you say? Sophia's voice was hoarse and trembling. She gripped the edge of the table and slowly stood up, her eyes locked on mine. Ethan, say that again. I said, I didn't get a vasectomy. I repeated, looking her straight in the eye. I made it all up. Smack. My mother slammed her hand on the table, a mix of anger and relief on her face. You child, how could you joke about something like that? Do you have any idea? Idea about what? I cut my mother off, my tone laced with a repressed frustration as I turned my attention back to Sophia. Why don't you ask her why she was so guilty that she had to run to an OB/GYN to get checked? The reason is pretty obvious, isn't it? The minute her ex is back in the country, she runs to him, lying to me that she's working late. She's with him constantly, and she tells me they're just friends? That's not true. Sophia's voice shot up. She began to tremble uncontrollably, tears suddenly streaming down her face. I went to the clinic because I thought you had really done it. Her words stunned everyone. I have never cheated on you. I wasn't pregnant, but I was terrified. I was terrified that if by some miracle I was pregnant and you'd had a vasectomy, whose baby would it be? I could never clear my name. I had to find out for sure. She fumbled in her purse, pulled out a folded piece of paper, and slammed it on the table. Here's the report. I'm not pregnant, she cried, her voice thick with anguish and fury. And I asked the doctor. I asked her if it was possible for a wife to get pregnant naturally if her husband had a vasectomy. The doctor told me that reversing a vasectomy is risky, that it could lead to permanent infertility. She was sobbing so hard she could barely breathe, her makeup running down her face. My parents and in-laws were frozen, looking back and forth between me and the hysterical Sophia. My mother-in-law rushed to put an arm around her. She looked up, her tear-filled eyes boring into me. Ethan, all I could think about was what I would do if you really couldn't have children. What would happen to our family? What would we do if we ever wanted a child? What would we do? I never once even thought about divorcing you over it. And you? You were playing me with a vicious lie, just to get back at me. My mother opened her mouth to say something, but closed it with a sigh. I sat in my chair, silent. The irritation in my chest had strangely subsided. Yes, I lied. I was wrong. I finally said, my voice unnervingly calm. But you should ask yourself in all honesty, why did I lie? The day Julian came back, you said you were working late. But you were having dinner with him until midnight. Not even a storm could drag you home. I go out for a meal with my friend, and you show up with your old flame to ruin it. And now, he has the audacity to come to my office and lecture me, as an old friend, on how to be your husband. At the industry summit, you two were so close, anyone who didn't know better would have thought you and Julian were the married couple. With every sentence I spoke, Sophia's face grew paler. Sophia, even a saint has his limits. Did you really think I had no breaking point? The dining room fell into a deathly silence. My parents and in-laws exchanged looks, their anger and accusations slowly replaced by a complex mix of embarrassment and understanding. They were finally beginning to see that this was about more than just one lie. This was about deep-seated problems that had finally erupted. My mother-in-law squeezed Sophia's shoulder, her gaze toward me, still holding blame, but also helplessness. My father-in-law sighed heavily, reached for his cigarettes, then put them down in frustration. My father's brow was deeply furrowed, and my mother was at a loss for words. Sophia pulled away from her mother's embrace and wiped furiously at her tears, her eyes red and swollen. Yes, I admit it. I handled the situation with Julian badly. I ignored your feelings. Her voice was still hoarse, but it now carried a desperate resolve. I was wrong to lie about working late, and I was wrong that seeing him so often made you uncomfortable. But I never, ever thought about betraying our marriage, and I never thought about leaving. I thought we just needed more time to adjust. She took a deep breath, trying to calm herself. He just got back, and he needed my help with a lot of things. I admit my boundaries were blurry, and that I caused a misunderstanding. But I swear, there is nothing going on between us. My mother-in-law tried to intervene, but my father-in-law stopped her with a look. My parents also remained silent, realizing that this was a fight we had to resolve ourselves. I looked at Sophia. The defiance and pain in her eyes didn't seem fake. The fire in my gut, which had been burning so fiercely, felt like it had been doused by her tears. All that was left was a deep, bone-weary exhaustion. Time to adjust? I repeated her words, my tone laced with sarcasm, though it lacked its earlier bite. It's been 3 years, Sophia. How much more time did you think I'd give you? I tried to get closer, and every time you push me away with your independence and boundaries. But the second Julian comes back, all your time and boundaries seem to be reserved for him. And don't talk about me lying to you. This all comes down to you and Julian being unable to keep your distance. The fact that I didn't go over there and beat the shit out of him is the last bit of respect I have left for you. Sophia's lips parted, but no sound came out. She looked at me as if I were a complete stranger. So in your mind, Julian and I are definitely having an affair, is that it? Her voice was quiet, almost numb. I didn't answer, which was an answer in itself. The expressions on our parents' faces were grim, but no one else spoke. This was our mess to wade through. Ethan, you're a real bastard, she said. She didn't look at me again. Instead, she turned to our 4 parents and bowed deeply. Dad, Mom, I'm so sorry you had to see this. I lost my appetite. Before anyone could react, she turned and walked away. The sound of her heels faded up the stairs. My mother-in-law started to go after her, but my father-in-law held her back, shaking his head. Ethan, my dad sighed, his face etched with fatigue. You've really sighed. I stood up, tugging at my tie. I should go too. No one tried to stop me. Outside the Reed's villa, the night air helped to clear my head a little. My phone buzzed. It was Leo. How'd it go tonight? He asked immediately. My parents were there too. So did you two make up? I don't know. It's complicated. Holy shit. You want to go grab a drink? Leo asked tentatively. Not tonight. Going home to sleep. I hung up, but didn't start the car. An image of Sophia from tonight flashed through my mind. My chest felt tight, but that tightness was quickly overwhelmed by a stronger emotion, annoyance. How was it that she was the one getting cozy with her ex, but somehow I was the one who had gone too far? The next few days passed as usual. Work, home, repeat. Sophia didn't come back, nor did she contact me. The world was almost too quiet. On Friday afternoon, as I was reviewing some documents, the intercom buzzed again. My assistant's voice was nervous. Mr. Hayes, Mr. Vance is here again. He said it's extremely important that he has to see you. I frowned. He was like a bad smell that wouldn't go away. Send him in. This time, Julian wasn't in a suit. He was wearing casual clothes, but his expression was much uglier than the last time. He walked straight to my desk, slammed his hands down on the surface, and leaned in, his eyes blazing with anger. Ethan, what the hell did you say to Sophia? I leaned back in my chair, casually spinning a pen. What's with the attitude, Mr. Vance? He took a deep breath, visibly trying to control himself. She's blocked me on everything. I went to her office to see her, and she refused to meet with me. We've been friends for so many years, all ruined because of your lies. I laughed. Lies? I just relayed the message you gave me when you were last here, that I should divorce her and get out of the way. What? You have the guts to say it, but not to own it. Julian's face changed. That's a blatant lie. I never said anything like that. Oh, maybe I misremembered. I shrug, unconcerned. The result is the same either way. Julian, she doesn't want to see you. Can't you take a hint? Or do you have to come here and throw a tantrum in my office? He glared at me, his chest rising and falling rapidly. Ethan, don't get too cocky. Sophia's just been temporarily fooled by you. She'll see the truth soon enough. Is that so? I put down my pen, stood up, and met his gaze across the desk. We're all in our 30s. How can you be so shameless? Sophia and I are married. How dare you say something like that to my face? My words left Julian speechless, his face turning a pale shade of green. I walked around the desk, stood in front of him, and patted his shoulder. My tone was mockingly sincere. Julian, let me give you some advice. Stop coveting another man's wife. It's immoral. Besides, I leaned closer to his ear and lowered my voice. How do you know she didn't block you because she finally saw you for who you are and was disgusted? Julian shoved me away violently, his eyes murderous. You. Show him out, I said into the intercom. This time, Julian was escorted out by security. When I got home that evening, the light in the foyer was on. I paused. Sophia was sitting on the living room sofa, dressed in loungewear. Her hair was damp, as if she had just showered. She didn't look at me, her gaze fixed on the television screen. But the screen was blank. I changed my shoes without a word and went to the kitchen for a glass of water. I've moved back in, she said suddenly, her voice flat. I came back out with my glass and leaned against the kitchen doorway. Okay. She finally turned to look at me. Her eyes were still a little swollen, but her expression was calm. Did Julian go see you today? He did. What did he say? Nothing new. I took a sip of water, then added a casual lie. He told me to get out of the way, said it was my fault he'd been blocked. I told him to stop obsessing over another man's wife, that it was pathetic. But he said a goal is always sweeter when there's a goalie. I've never met someone so shameless. And he's supposed to be an international businessman. Pathetic. Disgusting. I could see Sophia's face visibly darken. But she didn't argue or get emotional like before. Her hands, resting on her lap, simply tightened their grip on the fabric of her pants. Did he really say that? Her voice was unreadable. Does it matter? I threw the question back at her and walked to the other end of the sofa to sit down. You've already blocked him, haven't you? Sophia was silent for a few seconds, then she gave a soft, I made it clear to him, she said. From now on, our interactions will be purely professional. We won't be meeting privately again. She paused, then added, if there are any professional interactions left to be had. It was an explanation, a concession. But the knot of resentment in my chest didn't loosen. Trust is like a piece of paper. Once it's been crumpled, the creases never truly disappear. Whatever you want, I said, picking up the remote and turning on the TV. The sound of the financial news network filled the silence in the living room, somehow making it feel even more empty. It felt like we were back where we started, but some things were different. Even when we slept in the same bed, it felt like there was an invisible chasm between us. Time passed like a dull knife, slowly carving away another month. Leo had the good sense to stop calling me to go out, limiting his contact to sending stupid memes on WhatsApp. Sophia never mentioned Julian again. She even started turning down unnecessary social events, coming home on time more often than not. Occasionally, she would try to start a conversation about a new project at her firm or a new restaurant that had opened up. I would usually offer a few brief responses, and the conversation would die, the air between us turning thick again. We both knew it. The crack between us couldn't be fixed by avoidance or a facade of peace. We were trapped in this marriage, by our families, by our business interests, by our public image, and by some lingering shred of pride and a reluctance to completely give up. The rain stopped, I said suddenly, looking out at the clearing night sky. Sophia followed my gaze and answered softly. My dad asked me yesterday, when we were planning on having kids, she said out of nowhere, her voice so quiet it was as if she were talking to herself. I turned my head to look at her. What did you say? I said, we'll see what happens. She gave a small, self-mocking smile. I think he was a little disappointed. I didn't reply. Ethan, she finally turned to look at me, her eyes full of a complex emotion. Is this it for us? The question was vague, but we both knew what she meant. I stared at the distant city lights, silent for a long time. I don't know. The light in Sophia's eyes dimmed. She didn't say anything else, just turned and walked toward the bedroom. She paused at the door without looking back. My flight is at 9 on Monday morning. Don't worry about seeing me off. It's a 2-day business trip. Then, she closed the bedroom door.